I learned early that safety lived in the spaces no one looked. The corner of the kitchen where steam swallowed faces. The edge of corridors where torchlight died. The hour before dawn when even alphas slept and I could move through Alpha King Henry's fortress like smoke through stone. For 3 years, I kept my head bowed, my hands busy, my scent buried under crushed lavender and kitchen ash. Then one storm-shattered night, everything changed. Thunder cracked the sky open as I crossed the courtyard to clear debris from a forbidden ritual. Through curtains of rain and smoke, Henry emerged from the ceremonial circle, armor torn, braids slick with blood, one hand dripping crimson onto pale stone. Warriors ringed us in frozen silence, waiting for orders, for punishment, for anything except what happened next. He looked straight at me. Clara. My name in his mouth sounded like a prayer from a man who'd forgotten how to pray. His golden eyes burned with something between desperation and devotion as he lifted his bloodied palm toward me, fingers trembling. "Take my hand," he whispered, loud enough for the watching pack to hear. "If you do, I belong to you as much as you'll ever belong to me." And I knew the edges would never hide me again. The safest place in the fortress is the part no one remembers. Heat and shadow, smoke and stone that is my kingdom. Not the high towers where strategy is whispered. Not the war room carved with old victories. Certainly not the throne room where Alpha King Henry sits like a storm bottled in human skin. My world is the places his gaze never reaches. The back of the great hall where soot eats the ceiling. The narrow space between the outer ovens and the wall where the heat is too sharp for anyone but an Omega to endure. The thin ledge beside the kitchen hearth where I tuck my feet up and braid my hair before dawn, pretending the crackle of the fire is applause for staying alive one more night. I am very good at staying alive. My rules are simple. Do the work. Lower the head. Never let an alpha's gaze linger. Most days it is enough. I scrub blood from stone after training bouts and pretend it is just rust. I polish armor until it throws back warped, harmless versions of the men who wear it. I carry dishes and wood and water, and the secrets no one bothers to hide in front of the invisible girl stacking plates. Rumors travel faster than steam in a fortress like this. They cling to walls, to cloaks, to the edges of conversation. They say Henry killed his first challenger at 16, spine snapped on the courtyard steps. They say he bit through another alpha's throat in front of the old council and didn't bother to wipe the blood from his jaw before taking the crown. They say his wolf is too strong, too wild, too hungry, that it needs binding rituals and blood oaths just to keep from tearing the mountain down around us. Those are the stories the warriors tell with a kind of reverent dread. The servants have a different version. We talk about the way the air goes thin when he walks through the great hall. How every sound seems to hush, as if the fortress itself is holding its breath. How he never raises his voice, but men twice his size flinch when he says their names. And about his rituals, no one has seen one up close, not and talked about it afterward. We hear the echoes, instead the boom of drums, the sharp rise of chanting, the silence that comes after, heavy as snow. No one sends a girl like me near that kind of power. At least, not on purpose. The evening it happens, the air feels wrong from the first moment. Thunder presses against the stone like fists, shaking dust from the rafters. The fortress smells like wet fur and metal, and the sharp electric tang that comes before lightning. The warriors have been called to the inner yards. The main hall is stripped bare, benches shoved against the walls, long tables empty. Even the higher-ranked servants are gone, dismissed early with tight mouths and tighter shoulders. I should be curled on my pallet in the Omega barracks by now, pretending sleep, while the others whisper about mates and marks and futures that will never be mine. Instead, the kitchen steward shoves a bundle of cloth into my hands and jerks his chin toward the outer door. "Courtyard's a mess," he says. "They finished with their ceremony." He does not look at me when he says it. "Someone needs to clear the debris before morning. Go. Fast." My fingers tighten on the cloths. The courtyard? Now? My voice comes out thin. He is already turning away, barking orders at a junior cook. "You want to eat tomorrow, Clara, you'll move." Arguing is a luxury. I have never been rich, so I wrap my shawl tighter, crush fresh lavender along my throat until the scent stings my eyes, and slip through the narrow door that leads toward the outer courtyard. The fortress changes at night. The corridors, loud and crowded during the day, are hollow tunnels of echoing footsteps now. Torches burn low, smoke curling toward the ceiling in lazy ribbons. My boots whisper over worn stone as I move, keeping to the very edges of the hall, shadow hugging shadow. Outside, the storm has its hands around the mountain. Rain lashes the flagstones, blown sideways by the wind. Lightning claws across the sky, briefly turning the world to white bone and black cracks. I pull my shawl over my head and step into it, teeth gritted, hands numb around the bucket and rags. The courtyard smells like iron, not the familiar tang of training blood, quickly washed away and laughed about. This is older, deeper, cloying, threaded with smoke from extinguished braziers and the bitter scent of burnt herbs. Dark shapes lie scattered across the stone, spent candles, smears of ash, feathers, bowls overturned and slick with something too dark to be wine. Whatever they did here tonight, it was not meant for my eyes. I keep them down anyway. Do the work. Lower the head. Never let an alpha's gaze. I stop. There is someone still here. The realization hits like cold water. The hairs on the back of my neck lift, my wolf pressing tight to my ribs. For a moment, all I hear is the rain and my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then the smoke stirs. He steps out of it, as if the storm spat him onto the stone. Henry. Armor cracked along one shoulder, leather darkened and torn. Braids plastered to his neck with rain and sweat. No cloak, no crown. Nothing to say king, except the way the world seems to tilt around him. His golden eyes burn in the dim light, brighter than the torches, brighter than the lightning flashing overhead. And his right hand is dripping. Blood runs in thin streams from his palm to his wrist, tracking along the ridge of muscle, falling in slow, heavy drops to the stone. Each one hits with a soft, obscene sound, lost almost immediately beneath the hiss of rain. I forget how to breathe. This close, his scent is overwhelming. Pine smoke, cold air, something darker edged with the metallic bite of blood and power. It hits me like a blow, my omega rising instinctively, desperate to flatten, to bare my throat, to flee. I do none of those things. I stand there, bucket dangling from my fingers, shawl half fallen from my hair, caught like an animal in a hunter's gaze. He should not be looking at me. There are 100 reasons for his eyes to slide past a warrior at his side, a council member hovering in the shadows, the ceremonial circle carved into the stone. I am nothing. I am the girl who scrubs the floors when everyone else has gone to bed. But Henry's gaze finds me and holds. Clara. My name leaves his mouth rough, like he has dragged it over gravel 1,000 times and is only now allowed to speak it. The sound shivers through me, settling low and sharp and terrifyingly sweet. I swallow, throat dry despite the rain. Your Majesty? I manage, voice barely audible. He takes a step closer. The warriors ringed around the inner edge of the courtyard do not move. I hadn't even seen them. Silhouettes in the gloom. Armor catching the occasional flash of lightning. They stand in perfect, unnatural stillness as their king crosses the blood-streaked stone toward a girl with a bucket and a handful of rags. His eyes never leave mine. Up close, the exhaustion carved into his face is more brutal than the crack in his armor. There is a tremor in the hand that hangs at his side, in the one still dripping red between us. Whatever ritual he performed tonight has taken more than blood. He stops an arm's length away. Rain runs down his cheekbones, clings to the dark lashes framing those impossible eyes. For a heartbeat, the storm goes distant. There is only the space between us, taut and fragile as a stretched wire. You shouldn't be out here, he says quietly. Neither should you, I don't say. I was told to clean, my king. Something flickers in his gaze at the title. Not anger, exactly. Something like pain. Henry, he corrects, equally soft. At least when you're the one standing in my blood. I blink, glance down. A thin red arc stains the stone where the drops from his hand have fallen, just shy of my bare toes. My breath stutters. I step back on instinct, but his injured hand lifts, halting the movement. Don't. The word is a command, but the way he says it sounds almost like a plea. He extends his hand toward me. Blood runs from his palm in fresh streams, warm and shockingly bright even in the storm-dim courtyard. It should terrify me. It does, but underneath the fear is something else. Something that makes my wolf press forward, ears pricked, tail curled low, in wary interest. Take it, Henry says. I stare at him. I don't understand. His throat works as he swallows. Lightning flashes again, throwing the hard planes of his face into sharp relief. Jaw clenched, mouth set, eyes too raw for a man who is supposed to be untouchable. I have spilled my blood before, he says slowly. For the pack, for the crown, for the right to keep this fortress standing. His gaze searches my face like he is looking for something only I might hold. Tonight I spilled it for a promise. It's not complete until someone takes it. Someone, not a priest, not a council elder, not a bloodline match groomed for him since childhood. Me. Rain patters in the stretch of silence between us, drumming on stone, on steel, on skin. My hand tightens around the handle of the bucket until my knuckles ache. I'm just a servant, I whisper. The corner of his mouth lifts, humorless and soft. Tonight, he says, you're the only one I trust. I should run. I should drop to my knees. I should do anything except stand there with my heart beating itself bloody against my ribs while the Alpha King holds his ruined hand out like an offering. Thunder rolls over the mountain, deep and distant. I take one step forward. The edges of the fortress have kept me invisible for years. One touch, one breath, one choice, and I know I will never belong to the shadows again. The courtyard is too quiet. Rain still falls, needling my skin, but the storm's roar has gone distant, as if the world pulled back to watch. I become aware of the circle of warriors only when one of them shifts, leather creaking in the hush. They stand like carved stone around us, faces unreadable, eyes flicking between their king and the Omega girl who should not be here. Henry's hand is still outstretched. Blood drips from his palm in slow, steady beats, each drop shattering on the stone between us. My own heartbeat tries to match the cadence and fails, racing faster, harder, until my chest aches. Henry, I say, and the name tastes foreign on my tongue, like something stolen. This isn't for me. His gaze does not waver. It is exactly for you. His scent rolls over me on the wet air, thick and overwhelming. Pine smoke, cold wind, the metallic bite of blood and something deeper, roughened now with fraying control. My Omega pushes against my ribs, torn between the urge to bow and the savage, bewildering desire to step closer. Somewhere to my left, a voice cuts through the rain. My king, a warrior says tightly. The council is not here, Henry answers without looking away from me. His voice is calm, but I hear the crack in it, the fault line running under the surface. They chose to watch from their safe little tower, remember? Another voice, older, rides the wind from the balcony above, sharp as snapped bone. Henry, it calls. End the ritual. You have given enough. Do not bind yourself in front of witnesses. We can complete the circle properly at dawn. Properly. With the right names, the right blood, the right politics. Not with a kitchen Omega whose hands still smell faintly of bread, dough, and ash. My fingers curl in on themselves. You should listen to them, I whisper. I'm no one. This is a mistake. A muscle jumps in his jaw. Look at me, Clara. I already am. I don't know how to stop. I have been bleeding for this pack since I was 16, he says quietly. For borders. For land. For men who would gladly stab me in the back if it gave them a taste of my power. I have slaughtered challengers. I have knelt in my own blood to hold this crown. He lifts his hand slightly, fingers trembling. Tonight is the first time I have chosen to bleed for myself. The words hit harder than the thunder. For myself. For him. For me. The balcony murmurs again, council voices rising in frantic whispers. I catch fragments, unstable, reckless, Omega, bond. They speak as if I cannot hear them, as if I am a piece on the board instead of the girl standing in the center of their king's ruin. Release the circle, Your Majesty, someone calls. Do not anchor it to her. You cannot undo a blood promise once it seals. Cannot undo. Every instinct I possess screams that this is exactly why I should walk away. Why me? I ask, the question tearing out of my throat before I can swallow it. You could have anyone. Some highborn Omega trained to stand beside you. Someone the council approves of. Someone who knows how to be visible. He cuts in, something like humor cracking through the wreckage of his expression. Someone who does not braid her hair in the shadows and give away her bread? Heat rushes to my face. I didn't think he noticed those things. I did them because no one ever did. I watched you try to disappear in my own hall, he says, voice even softer now. Day after day, year after year, my wolf noticed before I did, pacing every time your scent slipped through the room under all that lavender. He calmed when you were there, even if you never looked at me. I flinch. I never looked at him on purpose. It is madness, I say. Yes, his mouth tilts. But it is my madness. Let me have it. Another counselor leans over the railing, desperation fraying his tone. Henry, if you anchor that promise to an Omega, they will use her against you. You know this. Release the blood or you risk the throne itself. I feel their fear like cold fingers on the back of my neck. Not fear for me. Fear of what this will make of him. Henry's eyes darken, gold swallowed by shadow. If the throne cannot withstand me keeping a promise to the one person who never asked me for anything, he says, it does not deserve to stand. The words shudder through the gathered warriors. One of them drops his gaze to the ground, as if witnessing something too intimate for the open air. My throat tightens. This will ruin you, I say. He laughs once, a rough, quiet thing that sounds almost relieved. You ruin me every time you walk into a room and pretend you do not feel your wolf looking for mine, he murmurs. This just makes it official. He takes the last step between us. Now there is no distance at all. Only heat and rain and the dizzying press of his scent, wrapping around me until I could drown in it. My heartbeat hammers in my ears. The world narrows to the bloody hand hovering inches from mine, and the way his shoulders seem to sag under an invisible weight. When I say this, he whispers, so low I feel it more than hear it. I will not be able to take it back. Understand that, Clara. You can still walk away. I will order them to forget this. I will carry the unfinished weight of it alone. The idea of him carrying anything alone stabs at me in a place already sore from too many small, quiet hurts. What happens if I take it? My voice is barely air. Then I belong, he says, and there is no king in that moment. Only a man standing in the rain, stripped bare. My life, my protection, my strength, my name bound to you, and you to me. They will see you as my weakness. His eyes burn. They will be wrong. His fingers tilt, inviting. Clara, he says, my name ragged. I swear this on my blood. If you take my hand, I will be yours as much as you are mine. Not just in heat, not just in battle, in everything. The bond stirs like a sleeping animal at the edge of my awareness, lifting its head. I think of my rules. Do the work. Lower the head. Never let an alpha's gaze linger. His gaze has not left me since he stepped from the smoke. I think of cold pallets in colder mornings, of hands snatching at my wrists in crowded corridors, of being no one's first choice. I think of the way my wolf went quiet when he spoke my name. The council is shouting now, voices frayed with panic. A few warriors shift, as if expecting the sky itself to fall. My heart is already falling. I set the bucket down. My hand shakes as I lift it. The air between us hums, charged and waiting. The closer I get, the louder the bond becomes. A low, insistent drum in my bones. Our fingers brush, the barest graze of skin against skin. Heat slams into me. Not the heat of fire, but of a door opening into a room I have never seen yet somehow recognize. I gasp, vision blurring for an instant, as my wolf surges forward, pressing hard against the thin cage of my body. Last chance, Henry breathes, eyes locked to mine. He looks terrified. Not of the council, not of losing his throne. Of me, the Omega who has nothing but her own small life to lose. I curl my fingers around his. The world explodes. Pain like lightning rips through my arm, searing up from my palm to my shoulder, racing along my spine. I cry out, knees buckling, but his grip tightens, holding me upright as the circle snaps shut. Heat roars through my veins, scorching away lavender and ash and every layer I ever used to hide. Images flash in the space behind my eyes. A child standing in a pool of blood, not his own. A crown forced onto a too young head. A wolf howling in a stone room, caged by duty and old laws. Not mine. His. Pieces of him, slamming into pieces of me, the girl in the shadows, the ache of always being almost seen but never chosen. Then, as suddenly as it began, the pain softens. It doesn't fade. It settles, like a brand cooling on skin. I am aware of everything at once. The wild, frantic thud of Henry's heart echoing against my own. The stunned silence of the warriors. The ragged breaths of the council above. The way the storm seems to pause, rain hanging in the air for a heartbeat before falling again. His thumb strokes the back of my hand, slow and reverent. It is done, he says hoarsely. Something invisible locks into place between us. A tether thrumming with steady, living heat. Counselors curse under their breaths. One of them turns away. Another grips the railing so hard I hear stone crack. The circle of warriors does not move. I realize, distantly, that a few have bowed their heads. Get her inside, someone snaps from above. If the enemies sent this, before we can secure the borders. Henry shifts, stepping closer, turning his body so mine is tucked instinctively behind his shoulder. His hand never releases mine. Anyone who touches her without her consent, he says, voice low and lethal, will forfeit the hand they used. No one argues. Hands reach for me, careful now, respectful, almost wary. Not to restrain. To support. I am half dragged, half carried from the courtyard, the world a blur of stone and torchlight and the relentless pull of the bond humming in my chest. The last thing I see as the door to the inner wing closes is the courtyard stone, streaked with rain and royal blood. Mine now, some wild, stunned part of me thinks. Because I am no longer just the girl at the edge of the fire. I am the Omega the Alpha King spilled his blood for. And that is more dangerous than any prison. They say the king's chambers are a paradise. From the bed, wrapped in blankets too soft to be real, it feels more like a cage. The room is all dark stone and deep color, heat collected in heavy drapes and fur rugs. A fire murmurs in the hearth, its glow licking over carved beams, iron sconces, the polished curve of armor resting on a stand near the wall. Henry's armor. The same plates I used to scrub with sand and oil in the great hall while he was nowhere in sight. Now the armor is empty, and he is here. Hold still, he says quietly, his fingers close around my wrist, turning my hand palm up. Even that light pressure sends a sleepy pulse of heat along the bond, a warm tug under my skin that is not entirely my own. The place where his blood touched me is an angry red crescent, edges darkened like something branded instead of merely burned. When he brushes it with a damp cloth, pain flares bright and sharp. I flinch. His hands jerk back as if I burned him instead. Sorry, he breathes. I stare at him. The word doesn't match the stories. This is the Alpha King who ripped out another man's throat for challenging his claim on the throne. The one who never apologizes, according to the guards who gossip outside the kitchens. The one who gives orders like weapons and sleeps with one eye open and never ever lets his voice shake. But his voice is shaking now. I've had worse, I say, because the silence feels too fragile. You saw the kitchens after last winter's feast. Hot oil is crueler than blood. It is a stupid thing to say to a king. But my thoughts feel like spilled grain scattered, impossible to gather back into something neat. The corner of his mouth twitches, not quite a smile, something softer. I remember, he murmurs. You refused to go to the healer because you didn't want to leave the other Omegas short-handed. I blink. You remember that? I remember a lot of things I shouldn't, he says, the faint humor stripped away. He reaches for a small clay pot on the bedside table and dips his fingers into it. The salve smells of herbs and something bitter. Let me? His question hangs between us like an offering. I nod. He touches the ointment to my palm with painstaking care, big hands moving as if he is afraid of breaking me. The sting is immediate, then fades into a blessed cool. His fingers tremble. You're the one who's hurt, I say. Why are you shaking? His jaw clenches. A muscle ticks. Because, he answers finally, I've never done this before. Put salve on a burn? I whisper, trying to lighten the air. You expect me to believe a king has never had a blister? His gaze flashes up, catching mine, pinning me to the pillows. Bound myself, he corrects softly. Like this. To anyone. The bond hums at the word, recognition rippling along the invisible tether between us. My wolf stirs, stretching, pressing toward him. The urge to lean into his touch is so strong I curl my fingers against the bedsheets to stop myself. You knew what it meant, I say. Before you offered your hand. He nods once. Then why? It comes out raw, scraped. You risked your crown. Your council is probably sharpening their teeth as we speak. I'm sure there are better options than a girl who smells like bread and smoke. He finishes smoothing salve over the burn and begins wrapping a strip of clean linen around my palm, tucking the edge under with deft fingers. It's easier for him to look at his work than at me. I know the cadence of your footsteps, he says quietly. My breath catches. I know you take the long way to the kitchens in the morning to avoid the warriors changing shifts. His voice is low, almost conversational, but every word lands heavy. I know you favor your left side when you're carrying wood because your right shoulder was hurt 5 winters ago and never healed properly. I know you hum when you think no one is listening some old tune that has no words. Heat rushes up my neck. I want to yank my hand away, cover my face, hide somewhere inside the blankets where his eyes cannot reach. You shouldn't notice those things, I whisper. You have a whole kingdom to watch. I do, he agrees. And in all of it, you are the only thing that makes my wolf go quiet. The bandage is finished. He doesn't let go. The room feels too small. The fire throws his shadow across the wall. Broad shoulders, strong neck, the breadth of him more obvious without the armor. He still wears leather, simple but well-made, dark and unadorned. His hair is damp, braids loose, a few strands clinging to his throat. Without the weight of a cloak, he looks less like a statue carved for a throne and more like a man. A tired, dangerous, stubborn man who has just upended both our lives. How long? I ask. He knows what I mean. Months, he says. Maybe longer. It took me too long to notice the pattern, that my temper was worst on the days you never crossed the hall, that my wolf paced the walls until your scent finally drifted in on a tray of cups or a stack of wood. I think of the times the hall felt thick with unease, warriors snapping at one another, servants flinching at roared orders. I had always assumed that was simply what war kings were like. I thought you barely saw me, I admit. His fingers flex around mine. That was the problem, he says hoarsely. I saw you too much. I knew if I let myself look directly, I wouldn't be able to look away. The bond flares, warm and aching. At the edge of my awareness, something tugs sharp, insistent. A knock I cannot hear, only feel, like distant thunder pressing against glass. He feels it too. His gaze flicks toward the heavy door, jaw tightening. They're not coming in, he says. Whoever is out there knocks again. This time the sound is real, echoing through the chamber. Your Majesty, a muffled voice calls. The council requests audience. They say it is urgent. Of course they do. Henry's thumb strokes absently over the back of my bandaged hand. The contact sends a shiver through me. The bond eager, greedy for more. They can request, he says. I am busy. You can't ignore them forever, I murmur. His eyes return to my face. Tonight I can. Something in my chest stutters. The knock comes a third time, more insistent. A different voice now, sharper. My king, this concerns the ritual. We must know the nature of the attachment you formed. Attachment, as if I am a stray limb, an unfortunate growth that can be cut away. Henry stands. The sudden loss of his warmth makes me feel oddly bereft. He doesn't drop my hand until the last possible moment, fingers sliding from mine like something reluctant to let go. Leave the messages at the door, he calls, voice hardening into the one the fortress obeys. I will read them in the morning. There is a pause. That is not. In the morning, he repeats, soft but unmistakable. Silence. A moment later, footsteps retreat down the corridor. He exhales, shoulders sagging for just a heartbeat before he turns back to me. You just defied your entire council, I say faintly. For a bandage. For a night, he corrects. He drags a chair closer to the bed and sits, forearms braced on his knees. It is a posture I recognize. I saw him hold it over a dying warrior once, jaw tight, eyes hollow. But there is no armor now, no blood that is not his own. They will try to twist this into something they can tolerate tomorrow. Tonight, I am allowed to be what I am. And what is that? I whisper. He looks at me like he's been waiting years to say it. Terrified. The word punches the air from my lungs. I have fought men 3 times my size, he continues, voice rough. I've faced packs at the border, poison in my cup, blades at my back. None of that frightened me like watching you take my hand. I swallow hard. You're the king, I manage. You're not supposed to be afraid. Then I am a poor king, he says simply. Because I am afraid now. I painted a target on you in front of every set of eyes that matters. I gave them a map to my throat and told them where to cut. His hands curl into fists between his knees. Henry, I say softly. He looks up, and whatever mask he uses for the court is gone. No steel, no distance. Just a man whose entire body is braced like he's waiting for a blow he cannot block. I have never had anything they could use against me, he says. Not family, not a lover, not a weakness. That was by design. It kept this place safe. His mouth twists. And then a girl who smells like bread and lavender walked through my hall and looked at the floor instead of the throne, and my wolf decided safety was overrated. My heart aches. I didn't ask for this, I whisper. I know. I don't know how to be what you think I am. His gaze softens, the hard lines of his face easing. I don't need you to be anything, he says. Not a queen, not a symbol, not a shield. I just need you to exist, preferably within reach. The bond pulses, warm and steady. Within reach is dangerous, I say. For who? He asks quietly. Me or them? The thought of anyone testing that makes my skin crawl. For a moment, I see the courtyard again, the blood, the rain, his hand outstretched. Whatever else he is, whatever terrible things he has done, he chose to stand with me in the center of his own ruin. My fingers move before I can stop them. I reach out and rest my bandaged hand on his clenched fist. His breath hitches. The simple touch deepens into something else. A slow unfurling inside my chest, like a door opening to a room full of new air. It is not heat, exactly, not desire. Or not only that, it is relief, fierce and fragile, echoing down the bond from both sides at once. Then stay, I say, surprising myself as much as him. Just for tonight. His eyes close briefly. When they open again, they shine with something that makes my wolf lie down, head on her paws, finally at rest. I wasn't planning on leaving, he answers. He shifts his chair closer until his knees nearly touch the side of the bed. His forearms rest there again, his hands open now, not fists. He looks less like a king and more like a man keeping watch over the one thing he cannot bear to lose. The fire burns low. The storm outside pulls away from the mountain. Messages pile up unanswered beyond the door. Inside Henry's rooms, the bond hums between us. A quiet, living thing. I lie back against the pillows, our hands almost but not quite touching on the blanket, and listen to the sound of the Alpha King breathing in the dark. The first thing Henry takes from me is the door. Not by locking it. The heavy oak stays bare of bolts and chains. Instead, he seals it with a few quiet words, and the weight of his command, layered over my skin like a second bandage. You don't leave this wing unless I say so. He tells me the morning after the blood promise, one hand braced on the doorframe, the other wrapped loosely around a cup of tea he hasn't touched. Not past the end of the hall, not to the kitchens, not anywhere someone can get close without a dozen eyes on them. You can't keep me here, I say, even though the bond is already humming in wary agreement. He lifts an eyebrow. Clara, my name, and the subtle pressure under it, make my bones ache in a way that has nothing to do with obedience and everything to do with instinct. My wolf rolls reluctantly onto her back, paws tucked close, grumbling but yielding. For my safety, I echo, bitter. Yes, he says simply. For mine too. Whispers spread through the fortress like smoke. I hear them in snatches when the healer visits. When Corin steps in with reports he pretends I can't understand. Omega, bond, reckless. Some call me a weakness, others a miracle. A few just say her, in a tone that makes my skin crawl. I am not allowed to answer any of it. Instead, my world shrinks to Henry's chambers, and the private corridor that links them to a small sitting room and a bathing chamber big enough to drown in. I pace fur rugs and polished stone until my ribs protest, eyes snagging on the same handful of objects each time. The armor on its stand, the cloak tossed carelessly over a chair, the bed I should never have been allowed to touch, and Henry himself, moving through the space like a caged storm. He is everywhere. In the mornings, he brings breakfast on a tray instead of letting servants in. It should look ridiculous, the Alpha King balancing bowls and bread like a kitchen boy. But somehow it doesn't. He sets the tray down, pours tea into 2 cups, then sits on the edge of the chair closer to the bed, posture too stiff to be comfortable. Eat, he says. I can feed myself, I protest. Then do it, he answers. Before it goes cold. Somehow, I always do. Our hands brush over the cup handle more than once. The first time, I jerk back like I've touched a hot pan. The bond flares, sending a bright, startled pulse along my nerves. Sorry, I murmur. His fingers curl away slowly, knuckles white. It's fine, he says, but his voice has that too careful edge that means it isn't. By the 3rd morning, I realize it's not an accident. Not entirely. The bond tugs when either of us reaches for something the other is holding. It's like trying to pass an object across a fire. The flame reaches for both sides. We learn how to navigate it. We fail, often. One afternoon, I catch him watching me wrap my braid. The room is quiet, filled only with the soft rasp of my hair between my fingers and the low crackle of the fire. When I glance over, he looks away too late. What? I ask. Nothing. Henry. His jaw works. It's strange, he says. Seeing you do that here instead of in the hearth shadow of the great hall. You noticed me then, I say softly. I tried very hard not to, he replies. Nights are worse. Sleep is shallow now, full of strange dreams, blood on stone, hands reaching, the flash of his eyes in the dark. When I wake gasping, heart thundering, There is always a breathless second where I don't know where I am. Then the bond answers, steady and warm. And I feel him. The first night, I find him in the chair by the fire, elbows on his knees, head in his hands, armor traded for a linen shirt, bare forearms tight with strain. He looks up as I shift, eyes catching the glow. I thought kings had better things to do than babysit terrified omegas, I say, my voice hoarse. Probably, he answers. Unfortunately for them, I don't care. You can't sit there all night. He shrugs. I've stayed awake for less. But why? I push. You could command me to sleep. You could leave guards at the door. You don't have to. I wave a hand at him, at his rumpled shirt, at the exhaustion smudged under his eyes. Do this. Something flickers in his expression. I'm not here as your king, he says. I'm here as the idiot who tied his life to yours, and now can't breathe properly when you wake up choking on nightmares. The words lodge in my throat. Go to bed, Henry, I whisper. I am in bed. He nods once toward the chair he hasn't left. It would be easy to laugh it off, to turn my face to the wall and pretend I can't feel his gaze on me in the dark, shared breaths echoing the slow, reluctant softening of his posture as the night drags on. Instead, I lie awake and listen to him shift, to the soft sigh that escapes him when he thinks I'm asleep. Chains made of care. I know iron when I feel it. These are softer, but they hold just as well. The council keeps trying to rattle them. Messages arrive constantly, rolled parchments slipped under the door, the wax seals pressed with increasingly sharp-edged symbols. Henry steps over them until there is a small drift, like fallen leaves, gathered against the wall. You should read those, I say. Later, Henry. He gives me a look. You are healing, he says. I am making sure of it. They can wait until you're strong enough that the words won't knock you back into the bed. I am strong enough, I insist. You're still flinching when the wind bangs the shutters, he says quietly. Let me carry this part a little longer. Part of me bristles at the protectiveness, at being managed like a fragile object. Part of me sinks into it, starved for the luxury of having someone else hold the world back for a moment. My fear of being owned presses hard against the bars of my ribs. But another part of me, a softer, hungrier part, remembers all the years I carried everything alone. One evening, I test the limits. While he is in the adjoining room conferring with Corin in low tones, I slip from the bed, wrap a cloak around my shoulders, and creep toward the outer door. The corridor beyond is dim, shadows spilling from niches and arches, the air cooler than the constant warmth of the chambers. 2 steps past the threshold, the bond tightens like a rope. Clara. His voice snaps through me before the word reaches the air. I freeze. Henry appears in the doorway an instant later, Corin at his shoulder. There is no growl, no shouted command, only a look, shock, then fear, then something darker as his gaze drops to my bare feet on cold stone. Going somewhere? He asks, deceptively mild. I needed air, I say. And to walk. My legs are turning to pudding. There are only so many times I can circle your rug before I dig a trench. Corin makes a strangled sound that might be a laugh quickly smothered. Henry does not smile. You want air, he says slowly. You open the windows. You want to walk. You do it where I can see you. I am not a prisoner. No, he says. You're worse. You're my bonded omega in a fortress full of people who would like to know what happens to a king's wolf if they hurt his other half. The bluntness of it steals my breath. I won't live in one room for the rest of my life, I whisper. Then live in mine, he says. For now. It is the for now that diffuses me, more than any apology might have. He steps forward, offering his hand. For a long moment, pride wrestles with the bond. My wolf whines, caught between the thrill of the attention and the sting of confinement. In the end, I place my fingers in his. Warmth rushes along the tether, soothing and infuriating all at once. He leads me back inside as if escorting royalty, not a barefoot girl who tried to sneak away. When I sit on the bed again, he kneels to check my calves and feet, fingers light as feathers, looking for signs of strain. You're not angry? I ask. Oh, I am furious, he says, but not at you. At who, then? His jaw hardens. At the men who made you think walking alone in these halls is worth the risk of my wrath. It should feel like another chain. Instead, something melts low in my chest. Later that night, a nightmare drags me under. Hands in the dark, fingers digging into my arms, the thud of boots, the taste of blood. I jerk awake with a cry, heart racing, breath ragged. He is there before I can fully surface, one hand braced on the headboard, the other hovering over my shoulder, not quite touching. Clara, breathe, in, out, with me. I do. His scent fills my lungs, crowding out the phantom smell of stone and fear. Gradually, the tremors ease. I hate this, I choke. I hate feeling like this, small, cornered. His hand sinks carefully onto my shoulder, warm and solid. You're not small, he says. They made you think you had to be, to survive. That's not the same thing. Feels the same, I whisper. His thumb rubs a steady circle through the cloth of my nightshirt. No one touches you without your consent again, he says, low and fierce. No one speaks your name with their hand raised, not while I'm alive. Promises are dangerous. I have seen too many break. You can't guarantee that, I say. Yes, he answers. I can. The certainty in his tone does something strange to my fear. It doesn't erase it, but it gives it somewhere to stand, a spine to lean against. I realize, with a sharp, quiet shock, that part of me wants to believe him. That part of me wants more. More mornings where he insists on pouring my tea. More nights where his shadow falls across my bed before sleep. More of his hand on my shoulder, my wrist, the small of my back as he guides me through a room. More moments where I am not invisible, even if being seen terrifies me. My fear of being owned has kept me alive for years. It sits now opposite an equally fierce, newly awakened desire to be chosen, fully and without apology. Between the two, my heart stretches, pulled in opposite directions. Henry's hand tightens briefly, as if he can feel the war inside me. You don't owe me anything, he says softly. Not your trust, not your future. I made the promise. I will carry it, even if you never do anything but tolerate me. I don't tolerate you, I say. No? I haven't decided what I do, I admit. Want, feel, any of it. He nods, exhaling slowly. Then I'll wait, he says. For how long? As long as it takes. Chains made of care, I think again. If I'm not careful, I will wrap them around my own wrists. The summons arrives wrapped in polite threats. A junior servant brings the scroll, eyes wide, hands shaking. The seal on the parchment is heavy red wax stamped with the council's snarling wolf. It looks like it wants to bite. They said you had to read it right away, she whispers. I'm sorry. It's not your fault, I say, though my stomach has already started to knot. Henry isn't in the room. For once, the chair by the fire is empty, the air less thick with his scent. The absence makes the chamber feel too big and too small at the same time. I break the seal. The words are exactly what I expected and somehow so much worse. For the stability of the pack and the clarity of command, the bonded Omega Clara is to relocate to the supervised Omega Wing under council oversight. Access to the King's private chambers is to cease until a full hearing can review the nature of the bond and its impact on his rule. For the good of the realm. For the image of the crown. For his protection. They don't say from what. From me or from himself. By the time Henry returns, I've read the letter 3 times and folded it into a neat, trembling square. He steps through the door in a wash of colder air, shrugging off a cloak damp with mist. His hair is wind-tangled, jaw shadowed with exhaustion. The bond thrums at his arrival, my wolf perking up despite the dread in my throat. His gaze goes straight to my hand. What is that? The council sent for me, I say. They want a private hearing. That can wait until They want me moved. The words tumble out before I can temper them. He stops. Moved where? He asks carefully. To their Omega Wing, supervised. The last word tastes like iron. They think I'm distracting you. His eyes darken like a storm rolling over the mountains. They think they get a vote in where you sleep now. It's not a vote, I say. It's an order dressed up as concern. The silence between us sharpens. You're not going, he says. I already said yes. For a heartbeat, everything stops. The bond recoils, then roars, flooding my veins with hot, startled protest. His scent spikes, sharp and wild, like something inside him just lunged against its leash. You what? He says, voice gone very, very soft. I force myself to meet his eyes. I told them I'd comply, I say. I don't want to make this worse for you, Henry. They're already furious. The whispers, the letters. I don't care what they write, he cuts in. Well, I do, I snap. Because when they can't reach you, they reach me instead. Their words, their looks. You didn't see the way the healer flinched when she realized I was still in your bed a week after the ritual. You don't hear the way the other Omegas talk when they think I'm not listening. They think I'm greedy, stupid, a liability. Are you? He asks. The question lands like a slap. My throat tightens. I'm trying not to be. I choke. That's the point. If I move, they calm down. If I stay, they'll push until someone breaks, and it won't be you. It'll be me. I'm the easy one to move off the board. His expression shatters. In 2 strides, he closes the distance between us. Don't say that, he growls, low enough that it's more vibration than sound. The bond flares again, answering the edge in his voice. Don't talk about yourself like you're a pawn. You are not a piece. Then why does it feel like everyone keeps trying to pick me up and put me where they want? Because they're fools, he says. And I've let them think they could. You haven't exactly stopped them, I throw back. That's because I thought... He breaks off, dragging a hand through his hair, fingers shaking. I thought you were still breathing, still eating, still healing. I thought that was enough for now. I thought if I went slowly, they might learn to live with this before they realized how deep it goes. How deep what goes? I demand. He laughs once, humorless. My wolf, he says. The bond. Us. All of it. I shouldn't like the us. I do. Henry, I can't be the reason you lose your council, I whisper. Your throne, your pack. I won't be the excuse they use. So, your solution is to walk out of my rooms and hand yourself to the people who want to turn you into a symbol they can parade or hide at their convenience. His eyes are bright, almost fevered. No, absolutely not. It's not your choice, I say. For a second, something dangerous flashes in his gaze, alpha authority rising like a tide. The bond pulls taut, my wolf dropping her head, instinctively ready to yield. He kills it. The effort shows in the way his jaw clenches, in the fine tremor that runs through his shoulders. You're right, he forces out. It's not my choice, it's yours. He steps back, just enough that I can breathe without tasting his anger. His hands curl at his sides, empty. Is that what you want, Clara? He asks. To leave? To go back to being invisible in a wing full of strangers who will never see you as anything but leverage? The question scrapes bone deep. What do I want? To stop being afraid of doors and footsteps and letters stamped with snarling wolves. To have a life that isn't balanced on someone else's temper. To be safe, but also to wake up to the sound of him breathing nearby. To have him pour my tea like it's the most natural thing in the world. To feel his gaze on me and know it isn't a mistake, or a trick, or a threat. My fear of causing trouble rears up, lashing. So does the old rule. Don't become the problem. Don't be the reason anything breaks. Yes, I lie. I want to go. The bond burns. His head snaps back like I slapped him. Look at me, he says. I am, I whisper. No, he says. You're reciting something you think will save us and hoping I won't notice it's killing you. He moves closer again, slower this time, until my back brushes the cool stone of the wall. The corridor is narrow, lit by a single torch burning low in its bracket. Shadows cling to the edges like cobwebs. This is not the place I meant to have this conversation. You think leaving fixes this, he says. It doesn't. The bond doesn't evaporate just because we sleep in different rooms. My wolf won't stop knowing where you are. They're not afraid of you being a distraction. They're afraid of me having something I will not compromise on. And you won't, I say, bitterness rising. That's the problem. You'll choose me over them, every time. He leans in, hands braced on either side of my shoulders, caging me without touching. That's not the problem, he says quietly. That's the truth. His scent wraps around me, thick and inescapable. My wolf presses forward, tail wagging, half delighted despite the tightness in my chest. The bond vibrates, raw and hot, reacting to how close we are. Henry. You want to know how long this has been happening? He interrupts. How long my wolf has been choosing you. I swallow hard. Since the first winter you worked in the hall, he says. You came in with a stack of firewood too big for your arms. You nearly dropped it on your foot. Every alpha in that room smelled Omega and thought useful or trouble. My wolf smelled you and thought mine and hasn't shut up since. My knees go weak. That was 3 years ago. I manage. I know, he says. I considered sending you away, really far. A safe pack, distant allies. Somewhere my wolf couldn't scent you every morning before dawn. I didn't, because the thought of you out there without anyone who knew what you looked like when you smiled made me physically ill. I let out a broken sound. That's not rational. I say. No, he agrees. It's not. Neither is offering my blood in a storm. Neither is watching you choose to hurt yourself to make my life easier. I am not rational where you are concerned, Clara. I am something else. The anger between us twists, heating. It stops feeling like something meant to drive us apart and starts feeling like something we're both using as a shield to avoid looking at what sits beneath it. His forehead drops to rest against the stone beside my head. Say it again, he says, voice rough. Say you want to go. And this time, mean it. Don't say it because you're afraid of trouble. Don't say it because you think you owe them. Say it because being near me is worse than whatever they'll do to you. I can't. The truth crowds my throat, choking the lie that used to come so easily. Henry, I whisper. I don't know how to want both things at once. Both? Safety and you. He goes very still. Then, slowly, he turns his head until our foreheads touch. The contact is small, barely more than pressure, skin against skin. The bond roars like a wildfire. For what it's worth, he says, every word shaking. You have never been safer than when you are within reach of my hands. His breath ghosts over my mouth. I realize, suddenly, and with terrifying clarity, how close we are. How easy it would be to tilt my chin up, close the thin space between us, let the bond drag us the rest of the way into whatever happens next. I can't ask you to choose me over your crown, I say. You're not, he answers. I already did. His hands, still braced on the wall, curl inward. I feel the tension thrumming through him, the way his body strains against his own restraint. Tell me to stop, he says. If you want me to. Tell me to let you go to them and I will. I'll walk you to that cursed wing myself and station guards outside your door and pretend I don't feel half of me ripping free every time you breathe. The bond pulses. I should tell him to stop. Instead, my fingers, traitorous and honest, lift to curl in the fabric at his chest. Don't, I whisper. His breath leaves him in a shudder. Clara. My name breaks on his tongue. He shifts, just enough that our noses brush. His hands come off the wall, hovering for a heartbeat in the air, before settling carefully, reverently at my waist. The touch is light, like he's afraid I'll vanish. I will not mark you unless you ask, he says, hoarse. Do you understand me? No matter what the bond wants, no matter how my wolf howls, that choice is yours, always. The promise sinks into me, sinking hooks into places already half-claimed. Henry, I breathe. Say you understand, he insists. I understand. Good, he whispers. Then he kisses me. It is not the desperate, bruising thing I thought an alpha king's kiss would be. It is slow, careful. His mouth brushes mine once, twice, testing, asking. The bond stretches, then snaps taut, flooding my body with warmth that feels like finally exhaling after holding my breath for years. My hands fist in his shirt, pulling him closer. He answers with a low sound from deep in his chest, one hand sliding up my back, fingers splaying between my shoulder blades, holding me as if I'm something precious instead of something dangerous. The world falls away. There is only the press of his lips, the soft hitch of his breath, the way everything inside me that has ever curled in on itself starts, slowly, to uncurl. When we break apart, it's not because we want to, it's because we have to. He rests his forehead against mine again, eyes closed, breathing hard. This, he says, voice wrecked, is already more of a declaration of war than any challenge I've issued in the yard. I noticed, I whisper, my lips still tingling. We can't do more, he says. Not yet. Not until I've torn the teeth out of every man who thinks he gets to vote on your life. Ambitious, I murmur. Necessary, he replies. I laugh, a small, shaken sound that feels half like a sob. So what now? Now, he says, you don't move anywhere until I say it's safe. Not because they ordered it, because I'm asking. And if I still want to go? He opens his eyes. Then, I'll walk you there, he says. But I'll do it with your hand in mine, and my teeth bared at anyone who looks at you like you're an object instead of the person I chose. The council may still think they're in control. They don't know that in a dim corridor, against cold stone, the Alpha King almost claimed his Omega, and she almost asked him to let him. The first lie the council tells is that this meeting is about the good of the pack. The proof that it isn't stands beside me. The council chamber is carved straight into the mountain's heart, all echoing stone and cold air that smells like ink, old parchment, and older grudges. A long table stretches down the center like a spine, polished to a dull shine by generations of elbows and fists. Tapestries hang behind the elders' seats, wolves stitched in silver thread, watching with blank, patient eyes. Every chair is full. Henry doesn't slow as we enter. His hand rests low at my back, a steady, grounding weight between my shoulder blades, not pressing, not steering, just there. The bond hums in approval, stretching toward him like it's been waiting for this contact since we stepped out of his chambers. The room ripples. Some of the elders glance up and freeze. Others go still entirely, eyes tracking the point where his fingertips touch me. A few look away as if they've seen something indecent. This is the first time I've stood at Henry's side in this room. It feels like stepping onto a battlefield without armor. "Your Majesty," intones Counselor Terran, oldest of them all, his voice echoing off the stone. "You were summoned alone, and I chose to ignore that," Henry says. He guides me to the open space at the head of the table instead of the bench along the wall where attendants usually stand. "If you want to speak about her, you'll do it where she can hear you." The use of her, not name, makes my stomach twist, but Henry's hand presses slightly. A silent, "I'm here." Terran's mouth thins. "This is council business," he says, "not domestic." "If it concerns the blood promise I made in the courtyard," Henry replies. "It concerns my bonded Omega, and therefore is both." Heat crawls up the back of my neck. He doesn't look at me when he says it, but the words land between us like another vow. My wolf settles, satisfied, preening under the claim. The rest of me wants to fold in on itself, to make my shoulders smaller, to slip into the cracks of the floor before anyone can fix me with that measuring gaze. "Sit, Your Majesty," another elder says. "We have much to discuss." Henry doesn't sit. "I'll stand." His refusal hangs in the air like a challenge. "Fine," their expressions say without words. "If you want it difficult, we'll give you difficult." Terran folds his hands on the table, fingers bony and precise. "Very well," he says. "Let us speak plainly then. 3 weeks ago, during a sanctioned ritual to strengthen your rule, you deviated from the prescribed rite." Deviated, that's one way to describe offering his blooded hand to a kitchen Omega in front of half the pack. "You bound yourself," a different elder adds, "to an unvetted Omega of no political value, in public, without counsel." "Her name is Clara," Henry says. My heart stutters. He is not raising his voice. He doesn't need to. The room tightens around the soft correction, and she is standing right here. "So she is," Terran murmurs. His gaze slides to me at last, sharp and assessing. "Clara, step forward." Every instinct screams at me to stay where Henry put me. I move anyway. One step, then another, until I stand at the edge of the table across from men who have ruled this fortress longer than I've been alive. My knees want to bend. My chin wants to drop. "Invisible," my bones whisper. "Stay invisible." Henry's hand leaves my back, but I can still feel the ghost of it. "Do you understand?" Terran asks. "What your presence at his side means?" "Apparently not as well as you do," I say before I can stop myself. A few of the younger counselors blink, clearly not used to their subjects speaking in complete sentences. One looks faintly amused. Most look annoyed. Terran's eyes narrow. "It means," he says, "that every rival pack, every ambitious alpha, will look at you and see a lever, a way to move a king who previously could not be moved. We have built Henry's reputation carefully, unyielding, uncompromising, above personal entanglement. You complicate that." "I didn't ask to," I answer. He offered his hand. "You took it," another counselor snaps, "in front of witnesses, knowing what it would cost." I could lie. Say I didn't know, that I was ignorant of the weight of a blood promise. But Henry is here, and the bond between us vibrates with his reaction to every word. He promised not to mark me without consent. The least I can do is own the moment I consented to this. "I knew enough," I say quietly. "I knew it would change things, and you took it anyway." Terran's gaze flicks to Henry. "You see? She understands the consequences better than you have been willing to admit." Henry finally moves. He steps up beside me again, close enough that I feel the heat of him through my sleeve. "If you think I didn't understand the consequences," he says, "you haven't been paying attention. Then perhaps you no longer care for consequences," Terran replies. "Which is precisely why we are here." There is a rustle of parchment. One of the counselors produces another scroll, this one with a different seal, the mountain and crown of the fortress itself. "We propose a solution," he says. for the sake of stability. You will stand in the Great Hall at the next full moon gathering and renounce the bond, publicly, clearly, with witnesses. The ritualists will guide you through the breaking of the promise. The Omega will be compensated and reassigned to a minor allied pack where she will be appreciated and protected. The words hit like blows. Renounce, breaking, reassigned. I know what reassigned means. It means shipped off like unwanted inventory. A living apology wrapped in skin. It means waking up far from the only stone I've ever known, surrounded by strangers who see me as a bargaining chip. Henry laughs. The sound is soft and utterly humorless. You want me to stand in front of the pack, he says, and admit I broke a promise sworn on my own blood. For the good of the pack, Teren says firmly. Sometimes sacrifice is required. You always did prefer sacrifices made by other people, Henry murmurs. Your Majesty, a younger elder interjects, eyes darting between us. No one is asking you to abandon your duty to the girl. She will be cared for, placed where she cannot be used against you. My chest tightens. They keep talking around me, as if I'm a piece of furniture, a complication, a problem to be moved. It's familiar, too familiar. I feel myself start to fold, old habits snapping into place, shoulders hunching, gaze dropping, instinct screaming to make myself small, easy, agreeable. If I nod now, if I say, of course, send me wherever you like, maybe this will all stop before it becomes worse. The room begins to blur around the edges. Henry notices. His hand finds mine under the table, fingers curling around my own in a grip that says, don't you dare vanish. She is not a distraction, he says, voice suddenly rough. She is the person I chose. Chose, Teren repeats, like he's tasting something sour. You speak as if this were a mating bond, and not a wild impulse indulged in the middle of a storm. It is both, Henry says. My wolf has known what she is to me for years. The blood only made it visible. A murmur ripples through the room. One of the elders leans forward. Then you are even more careless than we feared, he says. You let this attachment grow unchecked, and now you expect us to rearrange the structure of rule to accommodate it. Henry's grip on my hand tightens. I expect you, he says quietly, to recognize that strength is not the absence of ties. It is knowing exactly what you will burn the world down for, and guarding it accordingly. And if what you would burn the world for is an Omega servant with no alliance value, someone snaps. A laugh bursts out of me, sharp and unbelieving. Good to know my worth in this room, I say. I'd almost forgotten what it felt like. Henry's head turns, eyes searching my face. Teren sighs, weary. No one doubts the girl's qualities, he says. This is not personal, Clara. It is practical. The crown cannot be seen to bend for love. Once you show them where your heart is, every enemy will aim for it. I'm aware, Henry says. I still offered my hand. And we are offering one back, Teren says. At the full moon, you step into the circle, speak the words, cut the tether. She goes to a safer home. The pack keeps its unshakable king. Everyone wins. The room seems to tip. Henry releases my hand. For one terrible moment, I think he's considering it. That he will weigh the pack, the crown, the council, and decide that one Omega is not worth the cost. His next words tear that fear to pieces. Clara, he says, and there is something fragile and breaking in the way he says my name. You should sit down. No, I answer, surprised by the steadiness in my own voice. If this is about me, I'm staying upright. He looks like he wants to argue. Then he nods, once, and turns back to the table. You want plain speech, he says to the council. Here it is. I will not stand in front of the pack and renounce her. I will not call my own promise a mistake. I will not pretend that what happened in that courtyard was anything less than my choice. Then you leave us no option, Teren says quietly. If you refuse to correct course, we must consider whether you are fit to hold the throne at all. The temperature seems to drop. A vote, another elder says, at the full moon gathering, after your refusal or compliance. The pack has a right to a king who puts it above personal desire, above me. My vision goes strange around the edges. I hear the words as if from underwater. A vote to unseat him. Because of me. This is why I wanted to go, I whisper, more to myself than anyone else. Why I said I'd move. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Henry hears. He turns, and the look on his face cracks me open. His eyes are steady, his jaw set, his shoulders square in that way that says he is about to walk into a fight. But behind all of that, beneath the king, there is Henry, the man who sat in a chair all night to listen to me breathe, who bandaged my palm with shaking hands, who whispered that he was terrified. "Don't you dare blame yourself for their choices," he says softly. If I hadn't offered, he cuts in, I would still be bleeding for a pack that never once knew what else I was willing to give. This isn't just about you, Clara. This is about the kind of king I choose to be. He turns back to the council before I can answer. You can hold your vote, he says. You can sharpen your knives. You can whisper in the halls and stoke whatever fear you like. At the full moon, I will stand in the great hall and speak, but I will not renounce her. Then you will force us to unseat you, Taryn says, almost gently. Is that truly what you want? Henry's shoulders lift and fall on a long, steady breath. What I want, he says, and each word lands like a stone dropped into still water, is for my pack to see me as I am, not as a mask you've built. I want them to know that their king can bleed, can choose, can love, and still stand. If they decide they would rather have a crown without a man under it, that is their loss. The room is silent. He reaches for my hand again, threading our fingers together in full view of every watching eye. She is my promised Omega, he says, voice calm, eyes shattered. Whatever you vote, whatever you threaten, that will not change. The ultimatum hangs in the cold air between us. Full moon, break the bond and send me away. Or keep me, and risk losing everything. Later, when we leave the chamber, my legs somehow still carrying me, I realize something that makes both fear and a fierce, painful pride bloom in my chest. The council may wear their masks and speak of stability, but Henry walked into their den, took mine off, and refused to put his back on. And now, for better or worse, the whole pack will see the face beneath. The full moon turns the great hall into a throat waiting to close. Torches burn higher than usual, their flames guttering in the draft that slips under the great doors. The banners have been taken down, leaving bare stone and the echo of every decision ever made in this room. The pack fills the space wall to wall, warriors in dark leather, servants pressed along the edges, Omegas clustered like islands in a sea of bodies. At the far end, the council stands on the dais below Henry's throne. In the center of their table lies the blade. It is not large, not jeweled or ostentatious, just a length of metal honed so fine the edge seems to blur. Symbols are etched along the flat, old and cruel, the kind of marks meant to cut more than flesh. My blood runs cold just looking at it. Clara, Corin murmurs beside me. Remember, you don't have to. I know, I say, though my voice barely makes it past my lips. I stand alone on the polished stone at the center of the hall. No rugs, no decorations, just me, the throne, the council, and the knowledge that every eye in the room has learned my shape. The horns sound. Conversation D's in an instant. Henry enters from the side door, not the grand one. Still, every head turns as if the air has reached for him. He wears dark armor, simple and severe, cloak thrown back over his shoulders. No crown on his head. He doesn't need one. Authority clings to him like a second skin. He walks past me without stopping. The bond tugs, protesting, but he doesn't look my way. Not yet. He climbs the short steps to the throne and stands beside it instead of sitting. The council takes that as invitation. Your Majesty, Taryn says, voice carrying cleanly. The pack is gathered. The moon is full. It is time to address the matter of your promise. A murmur ripples through the crowd. Henry's gaze slides over the room, calm, unreadable. I agreed to speak, he says. So I will. Taryn inclines his head toward the blade. The ritualists are ready. All that's needed is your hand, your words, and the girl. The girl. The pack's attention shifts to me, a collective turn of heads that feels like a physical weight. My heart pounds so loud it seems impossible no one hears it. I keep my hands still at my sides, fingers pressed into my palms until my nails sting. Henry looks at the blade. For a moment, something tightens in his jaw. Then he steps down from the dais, not toward the council, toward me. The hall goes utterly silent. Each footstep echoes, measured and unhurried. I can't make my lungs work right. The air feels too thick, as if the entire mountain has decided to watch. He stops a few paces away. Up close, I see the strain around his eyes, the tension in his shoulders. I also see the decision already made there. Clara, he says softly. No title, no distance, just my name. Yes, I manage. He takes another step closer. "Look at me," he murmurs. I do. And then the Alpha King does something no one in this hall has ever seen. He goes to his knees. The sound is small, a dull thud of armor against stone, but it lands like thunder. A collective inhale shudders through the room. Somewhere, a wolf whines low, confused. My world narrows to the impossible sight in front of me. Henry kneeling. Not in defeat. Not in supplication to the council or the moon. To me. He reaches for my hands. They shake as I lift them, but he takes them anyway, wrapping his much larger fingers around mine. The bond surges, fierce and bright, like it's been waiting for this position. Him lower than me, his head tilted back, eyes searching my face. "Henry," I whisper, throat tight. He swallows hard. When he speaks, his voice is low but carries to the edges of the hall. "You all want to know," he says, gaze flicking briefly to the watching crowd before returning to me. "What she is to me, whether she is a weakness, a mistake, a distraction." His fingers tighten around mine. "Clara," he says, and the words are suddenly only for me. "You are the first quiet my wolf has ever known." My eyes burn. "When the world is too loud," he continues, voice cracking. "When anger claws at my ribs, and every instinct says fight, kill, tear one breath of your scent, and it eases. You walk into a room and the roar in my head drops to a murmur. For the first time since they put a crown on my skull, I can think without the taste of blood on my tongue. Terran shifts on the dais. "Your Majesty." Henry ignores him. "You want the truth?" he says, louder now, still on his knees. "Fine, here it is. I would rather lose that throne," he jerks his chin toward the empty seat, "than spend the rest of my life pretending this bond is nothing. I would rather be called weak than force her to live as if we are strangers." My breath stutters. He takes a shuddering inhale. "I have killed for this pack," he says. "I have bled for this mountain. I will keep doing both if they let me. But if they demand that I stand here and call you a mistake, Clara..." His voice breaks, just once. "Then they are asking for a kind of lie I will not tell." The blade glints on the table behind him. Slowly, deliberately, Henry releases one of my hands and reaches back. The council watches, frozen, as he picks up the ceremonial knife. Gasps ripple through the room. He doesn't turn it toward his own palm. He places the hilt in my bandaged hand. The metal is cold, heavy. It fits my fingers as if it has been waiting, though I know that's just imagination. My heart slams against my ribs. Henry lifts our joined hands, blade and all, so the entire hall can see. "Everyone seems very concerned with my choices," he says, voice steady again through sheer force. "So hear this. I choose to put the decision where it always should have been." He bows his head, still kneeling. "Clara," he says, "you are free." The word drops into me like a stone into deep water. "You are free to walk away from this bond," he goes on, each syllable carved out of him. "Free to cut the promise and take whatever life they offer you in another pack. Free to choose a future where no one aims at you to hurt me. If that is what you want, I will stand up, smile, and tell them it was my idea. I will make sure you are untouchable wherever you go." My vision blurs. "And if I don't?" I whisper. He looks up. The vulnerability in his eyes takes my breath away. The king is gone. Only the man is left raw, exposed, hands open around a blade that could end the one piece of peace he's ever had. "If you don't," he says, "I will stand with you in whatever storm they call down. I will fight every vote, every challenge, every attack, with your name on my tongue. I will not pretend you are anything less than the center of my world. But I will not make that war your prison." Silence crushes the hall. No one moves. Even the torches seem to hold their flames very still. My heart beats so hard it hurts. The room tilts. I feel the weight of 100 expectations pressing from every side. "Safety," one voice whispers. "Take it. Let him go. Let this be over." Another voice, quieter, stubborn, speaks from the bond itself. Him, not the king, not the title, the man kneeling in front of me, offering me the knife that could cut his own heart free. I think of nights in his chamber, his silhouette in the firelight, watching over me when nightmares dragged me under. I think of his hands bandaging mine with more care than he uses on his own armor, of the way he says my name like it's the first honest thing he's ever spoken. I think of a life somewhere else, safe, quiet, and hollow, where this tether hums now. My fingers twitch around the blade. Henry's grip tightens reflexively, bracing. I could walk away. I don't. I let the knife drop. The sound is small, a sharp clatter on the stone between us, but it rings louder than any horn. Someone gasps. Someone else curses under their breath. The council's carefully trained composure cracks, expressions flashing from shock to fury to fear. I don't look at them. I cup Henry's face in my now empty hands, thumbs brushing the rough stubble along his jaw. His eyes widen, golden and stunned, as if he had prepared for every outcome except this. I am not a symbol, I say, voice shaking. Not your weakness, not their compensation. I am an Omega who is very tired of being moved like a piece on a board. Clara, he breathes. I choose you, I say. The words are simple. They change everything. The bond surges, bright and wild, flooding my chest with heat that feels like joy sharpened to a blade. Henry's hands fly to my wrists, fingers trembling. There, I say, loud enough for the nearest rows to hear. Now if they want to unseat you, they'll have to do it knowing you didn't force me into anything. This is my decision, my risk. Our risk, he corrects, voice rough. The hall erupts not into chaos, not yet, but into sound. A low swell of voices, disbelieving, angry, awed. Somewhere, a wolf howls once, long and fierce. Henry rises slowly to his feet, keeping my hands in his. He turns to face the council, eyes blazing. You heard her, he says. Cast your votes, sharpen your knives. But understand this. Whatever you decide about my crown, the bond stands. You can strip the title from me, but you will not turn her into an apology for something I am not sorry for. In that moment, with the full moon pouring cold light through the high windows and the pack holding its breath, I realize something that makes my wolf lift her head and howl softly inside my chest. They may have a vote, but for the first time, so do I. The hall is still ringing with the sound of the blade hitting stone. It lies between us, harmless now, moonlight sliding along its edge. A few moments ago it felt like a guillotine hanging over my future. Now it is just metal. I chose not to lift. Henry is still on his knees. His hands are wrapped around my wrists, fingers trembling. His eyes search my face, like he is afraid I might vanish if he blinks. The great hall is full to bursting warriors, servants, elders, Omegas, but I have never felt more like the only person in the room. I could leave him there. Let the image linger, a king brought low by an Omega's choice. Instead, I slide my hands up, cupping his jaw, and tilt his face toward the council. Look at him, I say, my voice carrying farther than I expect. This is your king. A murmur ripples across the hall. A man who can kneel for love, I continue, is stronger than one who rules through fear alone. You wanted to know if he could put the pack above his pride. Here is your answer. He laid his crown at my feet and gave me the knife that could cut his heart free. I feel Henry's breath catch under my palms. I didn't take it, I say. Not because I'm weak, not because I'm foolish, because I have seen the man behind the armor, and I know exactly what kind of king he will be with this bond instead of without it. The bond flares. It rushes through me in a wave of heat and light, bright enough that for a heartbeat I swear I see it threads of gold stretching between us, humming with shared breath, shared heartbeat, shared choice. Judging by the sudden hush and the way a few wolves whine low in their throats, I am not the only one who feels it. The tether settles over the hall like a new law, not written in ink or carved into stone, but felt, known, unmistakable. Some of the elders go pale. One, a sharp-faced man who never once said my name, pushes his chair back with a scrape loud as a shout. This is madness, he snaps. A spectacle. You expect us to rule under a king who lets his wolf be led by this? He doesn't finish the word. He doesn't have to. Another elder, older even than Taryn, looks out over the crowd instead of at us. His gaze lingers on the warriors on the way. None of them look disgusted, only intent. On the younger Omegas, whose eyes shine with something dangerously like hope. The pack is not revolting, he says quietly. They are watching. Watching a disaster, the sharp-faced elder spits. Watching a king who did not draw steel on his own people, the older man replies. Who handed power to the one person with the right to refuse him and was prepared to live with either answer. He turns back to Taryn. Perhaps strength looks different than we thought. Two elders stand abruptly. One removes his council sigil, a carved bone token, from around his neck and places it on the table with shaking fingers. I will not be part of this, he says. Either he falls or the old laws do. I don't have the stomach for either battle. The sharp-faced elder follows, tossing his own sigil down in disgust before stalking out, cloak snapping behind him. A few others shift uneasily. Most stay seated. Not out of loyalty, perhaps, but out of something simpler. Recognition that the wind has changed, and they are not ready to be buried under the old stones. Henry rises slowly to his feet. He doesn't pull away from me. If anything, his hand finds mine more firmly, our fingers interlacing with the ease of something that has wanted to happen for a very long time. He doesn't reach for a sword. He steps up onto the dais, taking me with him, and turns to face the hall. "For years," he says, voice steady now, "you have known me as a king who killed without hesitation, who took this fortress with his own hands and held it with blood and iron. That part of me has not changed." A ripple of wary amusement moves through the crowd. "But you have not seen," he continues, "what held that part of me in check. Rage is easy, control is not. I chose to bind myself to the one person who makes that control possible. If you think that makes me weaker, you have not been paying attention." He looks down at me, then back to the pack. "The council wishes to speak of law," he says. "So let us speak of law." Terran's jaw tightens, but he nods, resigned. "From this night forward," Henry says, "no Omega in this fortress will be forced into a bond without their explicit, spoken consent. Any attempt to coerce that consent through threat, debt, or violence will be treated as an attack on the crown." A buzz rises, sharp and electric. "Furthermore," he goes on, "Omegas are permitted to hold positions of authority outside the domestic wings. If they have the skill for strategy, they may serve in the war room. If they have the mind for it, they may sit as advisors. They are not tools, they are pack. You cannot just rewrite," one elder begins. "I can," Henry says. "I am." He squeezes my hand, and I realize I'm shaking. "These changes are not because of Clara alone," he says. "They are because I have been king long enough to know that we waste half our strength by chaining it to the shadows." He glances down at me, and something softens in his expression. "But she is the first reason I cared enough to act." Heat stings my eyes. I stand beside him on the dais, not at the edge, not behind. My hand fits in his easily, my palm damp against his, my pulse slowly matching the steady beat of his own. I don't know what tomorrow will bring. Challenges, plots. Perhaps that threatened vote. The world outside these walls will not suddenly become gentle because one king knelt and an Omega refused the knife. We are not safe, not entirely, not ever. But as I look out over the hall at the warriors standing a little taller, at the Omegas with their hands pressed over their mouths, at the servants whose eyes keep darting to our joined hands, I feel something settle in my bones. I am not invisible. I am not a message carved in bruises or a pawn to be reassigned. I am the promise he spilled his blood to keep. And tonight, under the full gaze of the moon and the pack, I choose to keep it with him. If you've read this far, thank you for stepping into Henry and Clara's world with me. I'd love to know two things. Where are you reading from right now? And what has been your favorite moment in their story so far?